Good morning. I was scrambling around trying to find my headset adapter, and I was worried that I had left it in my parents' house this weekend. I didn't. I found it. It was the bottom of my bag. But that was my little heart attack, because that would mean driving about half an hour back to their house just to get this tiny little adapter, and then driving another half hour all the way back to my house, and I didn't want to do it, but I don't have to because I found it. It was in my bag the whole time. Everything's fine. I'm super out of it because I was at my parents' house for the weekend watching their dogs while they're away. It's a holiday weekend for us here in the United States, so it's a long weekend. My parents are, for Valentine's Day, going to some hotel or something, wherever they're going. So they asked me to watch the dogs, which I do from time to time. But I don't sleep particularly well in that bedroom. Their guest bedroom is just the bed in the guest bedroom is just not super comfortable, so I don't sleep too well. So I'm kind of tired. I'm a little out of it. I have a little bit of a headache, so I'm probably not going to be drawing for too long. But we talked about horses, so it made me want to draw Adra. So let's see here. I actually had two different sketches that I was deciding between, but so far this is the one that has won. We'll see if I end up working on the other one. I don't have a base for that sketch done, and I prefer to have some sort of base done before I start streaming. So I'd have to sketch it from scratch, which is not the end of the world, just probably wouldn't be very good. Because it usually takes me like 5 or 6 sketches to get something that I'm happy with, which is why I like to do it before I start. I, once again, did not put anything on Instagram or Blue Sky. I always forget. Let's see. I can do Blue Sky real quick, but Instagram would require my phone, and my phone is across the room charging. Let's see here. Sorry you have a headache. I hope you feel better. Thank you. Thank you, Morgan. Oh, and I did see your email, so don't worry. Your emails are making it to me. I have just been so busy. I haven't had a spare moment to look at my emails, but don't worry. I do see your emails. I'll shoot you back a response here pretty soon. Work has just been absolutely crazy. Oh, and I have a very exciting update. A very exciting update that I saw this morning before stream started. Immolation got its first quote unquote bad review. Except it's not a review. They didn't say anything. They just gave it a low rating. So I'll just be forever curious as to what they didn't like. Let's see. You can see that I've got this older sketch that I did of Adra. I have that up there as a reference because I knew I had drawn her with some of her barding on. So I'll try to keep it relatively consistent because I have an idea of what she wears kind of in my head, but I'm not the best at always. I rely a lot on my memory, which I should not be doing. I constantly just rely on my memory to keep track of character designs and stuff like that, which I should not be doing. I should write it down and sketch it out so I have a visual for myself. Let's see here. There we go. I'll try to put this on Instagram. They could have at least elaborated. I don't know if I'm relieved that they didn't say anything or not. It was only on, I don't know, it might pop up on Amazon. Amazon usually takes a long time to process. There's a different word that I was looking for there, but I couldn't find it. They take a long time to process reviews. So it's just on Goodreads, and it's just a rating. They didn't say anything, so it's just a 2-star rating. Adra is a whole powerhouse of a horse. She's a unit. She is. Let's see here. It's just a rough sketch. I don't really know that I have as much movement in it as I wanted, but maybe that's fine. The other thing is that by default, I tend to just draw a relatively modern English style saddle, because that's the type of writing I've done, so I know what those saddles look like off the top of my head. But that's not necessarily what Cyril would be using, so I've been looking at different historical saddles, trying to find something that feels like what he probably would use. Because he doesn't use like a particularly high-seated medieval type saddle that isn't really suitable for the type of writing he does with Adra. So I think I've mostly found, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head because I've looked at so many, but I want to say that the style of saddle I ended up with was like a historically inspired like German cross-country type saddle or something like that. I'd have to go look at my resources that I have saved somewhere. Hi Sarah, welcome in. How are you today? I also haven't decided what Cyril's going to be wearing yet. Usually, if he's on Adra, he's fiddled with his cassock to make it a little bit more comfortable, but it could also be fun to have him with like his full cloak on, because it's very dramatic. If there's one thing we know about Cyril, it's that he is a drama king. Also haven't decided if... Because if I was being really, really practical, so you can kind of see it in this sketch that I did. Adra's mane, it's basically not even drawn in at all on this. It's basically just a dark line. Oh wait, you can't see that, hold on. Basically just a dark line, and then her tail is like a little blob. And that's because if I was being slightly realistic, Cyril would keep her mane and her tail, I mean, not him personally, he has grooms that do this for him, but he would keep her mane and tail pleated, so there's less potentially for someone, especially a vampire, to like reach up and grab and pull on. There's less possibility that her hair gets stuck on things, so on and so forth. But every time I draw her like that, people are like, "Oh man, I hate when the horses have like short manes and tails," and they're like, "It looks ugly." So I'm like, "All right, are we going for flowy, pretty vibes, or are we going for practicality?" Because Cyril would be practical. He doesn't want her hair getting pulled out. He doesn't want her getting stuck on stuff. But everyone's like, "Yeah, but it looks better if her hair is down." So I don't know. We'll see what I want to do. I still have pretty high ratings on Goodreads, and yeah, that's the first 2 stars. I haven't even gotten a 3-star yet. Yeah, I haven't gotten a 3-star. I haven't gotten a 1-star. The 2-star is my first quote-unquote low rating. And I only noticed because if, at least on my end, if I go to Amazon, I can see the Amazon rating, which Amazon has a lot less ratings because it's harder to leave reviews on Amazon, because you have to specifically have purchased the book through Amazon, for one, and they're also very picky about the reviews that they accept. So when you go on Amazon, at least when I go on Amazon here in the United States, I think it's different depending on which country you're viewing from, but whatever. But when I go, I can look at it says like the title of the book, and then it shows the Amazon rating, and the Amazon rating is like 4.6 stars, 11 reviews. And then next to that, it'll show the Goodreads rating, which previously was also 4.6. So they matched previously. It was 4.6 on Amazon with 11 ratings or reviews, and 4.6 on Goodreads with 23 ratings. And it went up to 24 ratings, and it brought the stars down from 4.6 to 4.5. So that's why I noticed. I was like, oh, the star ratings don't match anymore. That means someone left either a review or a rating. Turned out to just be a rating. They didn't write anything with their 2-star review. I'm definitely curious, but also kind of relieved. Because I don't necessarily want someone to just write a doctoral thesis on why my writing is bad or why they didn't like it. But I'm also curious, so I'm like, I don't know, you could have said something. I don't know. It's also very possible that they picked up the book, they started reading it, and they just didn't vibe with my writing style or the subjects or whatever. And so they're like, I'm not going to finish reading it. And they just gave it 2 stars and then, donated the book or whatever. So who knows? It's hard to say. Yeah, if I'm letting her have her hair down just for the pure drama of it, then I'd like to kind of convey. You can see that I did a tiny bit. I don't know what layer it's on. Typical me fashion that I don't know where I put something. There it is. So I tried to convey a little bit of the movement. I want this to be in the snow, so she's going to be kind of kicking up snow later. But you can see that I kind of added this arcing line right here because the command that Cyril is giving her for her movement at this moment is that he's having her turn around, basically. So her body is kind of arced away. That's why her back legs, this leg, oh my goodness, you can't see that, hold on. Okay, there we go. This leg is in front, in the rear. It's coming forward in front of this other leg. But in her front, you can see that her shoulders are actually towards the viewer. So this leg doesn't cover up this leg. You can see both. Because she's supposed to be kind of arcing towards the viewer because he's having her turn around. So another way to show that movement with her hair is to kind of have, because I can do a couple things with her hair, and I can kind of insinuate she tosses her head a lot. She's a very dramatic. She has an attitude. She's a lady with an attitude. We love that for her. So I can kind of insinuate that she's kind of tossed her head down by kind of having her hair coming up a little bit, and then maybe like so. Her mane is pretty long, so she'll have a lot of hair to throw around. That's the other reason that Cyril usually keeps it braided or plaited or whatever you want to call it, because otherwise he's gonna, if her head is up, like, if her head's up, he's getting hit in the face with her hair. So that's usually also why he has it braided. A vampire horse sounds great or terrifying depending on who you ask. Can a horse become a vampire? So, without giving you any spoilers, and this is not about Adra specifically, without giving you any spoilers specifically, in Volume 2, you are going to be introduced to the concept of vampiric animals, because they do exist. In fact, you're going to meet one of the brothers at the church who specifically is assigned to and dedicated to treating and, or if necessary, putting down animals that have become vampiric because they've encountered blood in some fashion. So yes, you can have vampiric animals. That is a thing that can happen. So look forward to that. You'll get to meet that brother. He's one of the new characters that you are introduced to in Volume 2. Yes, let's see. So it's going to be snowy, which I think will be cool because I like having like having the contrast of the snow with how dark Adra and Cyril are. I think that's neat. And then that also means I can give her her spiky shoes, which is what she's wearing in this sketch over here. It's a really rough sketch, so you can't really tell, but there are little spikes on the bottom of her horseshoes to dig into the snow and help give her traction on ice so she can break through it rather than sliding through it. Does Bronte have a horse of her own? No, definitely not. She's not special enough to have her own horse. She's another comment that you will get to, or an interaction rather that you'll get to see in Volume 2, is that people will sometimes refer to her as a scullery maid, because that's essentially what she is. That's how low her rank is. She's not even like a full sister. And even, like, for example, JL, who's one of the sisters and is a hunter and has a, you know, a solid reputation not only as a hunter, but also is one of the most skilled riders of horses at the church. Even JL doesn't have her own personal horse. She just can use different horses in the hunter stables as needed. She has her favorites, like she definitely plays favorites and has certain horses that she likes more, but they're not her horses. They're the church's horses, and Bronte definitely doesn't get her own horse. I think Bronte would need a few lessons. I think Bronte could ride a horse if she needed to, but because she doesn't, she's a little bit afraid of them. Not like a phobia of horses, but she's definitely intimidated because she knows they're very powerful animals, and she wouldn't trust herself. She's never ridden one, so she wouldn't trust herself very much. She needs some help. She needs Cyril on the ground next to her, walking that horse for her, for her to be willing to try. I want to meet the vampire animal. You'll get to meet them. You'll get to meet them in Volume 2. I want to see a braided Adra. I think I'm trying to remember if I've drawn. Usually I don't do a ton of detail for her mane and tail. Obviously you can tell in this one I barely drew them in at all. But I wonder if I have any sketches that I've done previously of her that have braided mane and tail. Well, so the other sketch that I was considering doing, I'll do like a very, very rough one just to show you kind of what I'm talking about. Because I kind of wanted... Sorry, I was itching my eye. Because I kind of want to do a kind of desktop wallpaper-ish look for this one. Where I basically want it, and I'm going to do a very, very simple version, where I basically want it to be... Adra, actually, you know what? See, this is why I don't do sketches on stream usually, is because I have to go through like 16 different thought processes to get where I want. But basically, have more of her neck showing than just her head. So that's Adra. And the idea is that it would basically be Adra And then you'd have Cyril, and there would be like some of the city behind them, and then it'd be snowing, and it would be kind of like this closer up version of, and by the way, both of them would be looking that way. Cyril would not be looking at the camera and giving a thumbs up. Both of them would be looking that way, and it would be kind of this close-up version of both Cyril, but we don't care about Cyril really. We're talking about Adra right now, where you could see Adra with like her braided hair and like her fancy tack and stuff and all of her barding, and she would be looking very cute. So that's the other sketch that I was considering doing. I definitely feel Bronte on a spiritual level. And a bunny. Bronte doesn't have any pets. She, again, I think I cut the scene. Yeah, I think I cut it, the interaction from volume 1. Bronte likes the various barn and mousing cats that the church has, because the church, of course, has a bunch of cats, like feral cats mostly, that help manage the mice and rat population. She has named a couple of them, but they're not her cats. Monte's on a 5-stream streak. Thank you so much, Monte. You are single-handedly keeping the Twitch economy alive. Reminds me of Fluttershy from MLP. I love Fluttershy. Fluttershy is so cute. If I had to pick a favorite, it's probably Fluttershy. But yeah, so for her hair, since we're gonna have her hair down, which we normally wouldn't do, so I could do kind of like, trying to think of how that movement would look. Because basically her head is going this way, and it's also going down. Loosely like that. What's easier for you to imagine in great detail, scenes or characters? I can picture scenes, I think, pretty easily. Characters... So characters kind of break into two different, at least when I'm writing them, they kind of break into two different areas, for lack of a better word. So there's a character's visual design. That's one thing. That usually goes through several phases of development. So I will... So I will have trouble. Trouble's a bit of a strong word, but I won't necessarily envision them with a completely solidified design. So it's a little bit harder for me to picture them or imagine them in particular detail because I know that their design is going to change. But that's only visual. When it comes to characters in terms of their mannerisms and their way of speaking, that's actually very, very easy for me. So I can write a character in a particular situation and have all of their mannerisms sorted out, and that's very easy for me to do. And I can do that relatively consistently with all the characters. But the visual, that's usually a little bit harder because I know that there's going to be some element of change. I have one character who's giving me a lot of trouble with Volume 2 because I think he's gonna pop up in Volume 2. I'm like 99% sure he's gonna be hanging out in Volume 2, and his design and how he presents himself visually is, there's a lot of thought that goes into that. His mannerisms I've got, like his demeanor, that's all fine, that's all sorted, but his visual is giving me pause. I have to think about how he's going to present himself. Can I leave my orchid with Cyril for 2 weeks, or will he kill me if I ask him? He probably won't kill you, but he probably would kill the orchid. Not because he doesn't like keeping plants, because we've already established that he does. He would just do it out of spite. Anything actually fun to have? There we go. Because she's got a lot of hair. We love that for her. Even the innocent orchid. Nobody is safe. Give my give my give my Bronte to Orchid. Oh my goodness. I'll give my Orchid to Bronte. She'll do her very best. Even with her long hours in the bakery, she will try. I understand what you mean. Picturing scenes and personalities is somewhat easy for me as well, but sometimes the characters in books are literally faceless. I just don't want to imagine that. I'm still trying to kind of strike the right balance of describing characters and how they look. Because I have a very particular idea, but for me, part of the fun of reading a book is I get to kind of envision how the characters look myself, which in my situation is a little bit different because obviously I'm drawing art of the characters constantly. So if people read the book, they're likely to see some of the art that I do for the characters. But still. Where did I put? They are okay. I like the idea that Adra has so much hair that her little ear is like barely poking through it. I think that'd be really cute. Me pointing at a several 100-pound warhorse, like, hee, she's cute. And I'm right. You need to do that, you're creating them. I sometimes definitely don't listen to the writer's vision on their own characters. Yeah, I'm guilty of that too. There will be times that I'm reading a book and they describe a character as like having brown hair or blonde hair, and I've already pictured them with like a different hair color, hair texture, and I'm just kind of like, nope. Sorry. Sorry, I've already established what this character looks like in my head, and I can't change it now. It wouldn't surprise me if people do that with my characters as well. Especially Cyril. People usually want to change Cyril's hair color a lot. So if people are like, sorry, I picture him with brown hair or something, I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I can't tell you how to live your life. Especially because I draw so much in grayscale, people kind of will naturally want to fill in the absence of color with like their own ideas. So in some ways, my art style encourages people to picture characters with different color. I mean, obviously Bronte is not that far off from her grayscale version, but Cyril having a kind of fantastical hair color is a fair thing. Is Adra easy to ride? No. No, she is not. Adra is a very, very hot-blooded and attitudinal horse who needs a very confident rider, because if you're not a rider who is used to handling that sort of horse, she'll be able to pick up on that and she'll just troll you relentlessly. She's a giant baby. She deserves pampering, care, and love. You're so right. Cough, cough, J.K. Rowling. Uh-huh. Yep. It's, what's that? The gif from the Avengers with Nick Fury. I recognize the council has made a decision, but given that it's a stupid-ass decision, I've elected to ignore it. I remember I once had someone, I think it was on YouTube. It was either YouTube or Instagram, who, again, because I draw in grayscale 99% of the time, I'm not like surprised or offended when people assume that a character has like a different color hair or different color eyes or something like that that's different from the way I envision them, because I didn't give them that information when I drew the character because I draw in grayscale. But I remember someone, again, I think it was either YouTube or Instagram, said, well, I always pictured Cyril with white hair. And I'm like, no, because if he had white hair, I would be able to reflect that in the grayscale. You'd be able to see that he has white hair, because that aligns with the grayscale palette. So I was like, that's, you get points for coming up with the most imaginative hair color I've heard for Cyril so far, but no, he doesn't have white hair. Hello, Babel. Welcome in. How are you today? I'm glad you could make it. Harry and Hermione are way too different in the movies and the books. I never actually read Harry Potter, and I have only ever seen the first movie. So I don't really know much about everything I know about Harry Potter. I know through osmosis because I have friends who did read the books and have watched all the films. I'm good. I just had a late dinner and a shower. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. I had a coffee on my drive over from my parents' house, but I haven't had anything else yet. I'll eat some lunch after stream. Cyril might have a few white hairs by now. If his mane is teal, how would it change as he grows older? So with Cyril, because I am extra, I guess, I don't know. This requires an informational diagram. So with Cyril, this is Cyril. Everybody say hi, Cyril. There. Now it's Cyril. So Cyril's hair, he has, I guess I need to give him ears. So he has this buzz cut on like the sides of his head. So like all of this, all of that is short. And then he has the really long part. He has the long part up on top, and it's this is the worst thing I've ever drawn. And it goes like all of this and like down to like the back of his head. All that is long. And then this is the part that's short. So with his hair, when it's really, really short like this, because Immolation doesn't really get into this very much because it's not important, and there's already so much information in Volume 1 that I didn't feel that it was necessary to give you guys this lore, because I want Immolation in particular to be relatively approachable in the sense that the world that the story takes place in, I need that to be approachable so you guys don't have to get hung up on all the ways that their world works to just enjoy the story about the vampires, because that's the focus in Immolation. But the world that Immolation takes place within it functions very differently from our world, not in the sense of technology or stuff like that, though there's that too. It's like a fantasy world, but like the laws of physics, that kind of stuff, the way that their science, like the science of their actual world functions, is different from ours. So there are certain things about people and the way that they are, what am I trying to say? In this world, people are impacted more by things. Oh my god. I'm struggling. Genetics are weird in this world, is basically what I'm trying to say. People are impacted by the world around them in very specific ways that are not like the real world, because it's a fantasy world. And one of those things, I'm getting to my point, eventually I will get there. And there are multiple ways this plays out, but generally speaking, you can understand it as people come from like ethnicities. So a given ethnicity comes from a particular region or location in the world, and because they come from that place and because their ethnicity has been in that place for so long, they take on certain traits because of where they were born. And not like in a cultural sense, but in like a scientific and a literal sense. If you were born in a particular place, your body and everything about you functions in a particular way because of where you were born. And in Cyril's case, that means his hair is weird. It's different for everybody. Every different ethnicity has like some little bit of their like physical characteristics that are impacted by this. It's kind of like genetics, but not really. And mostly what it means for Cyril is that his hair is very much impacted by the amount of light that it receives. So by default, his hair is quote unquote default. When his hair grows very close to his skin, it's brown. So like this hair that's kept really, really short, if you look at it, it mostly looks brown. And because it gets a little bit of light, it kind of starts fading into a blue color. But then the longer his hair gets, the more sun can pass through it, or more light in general, but in this case sun, that's usually the light that he's dealing with. The more light exposure it gets, the more the color changes. And Cyril's particular hair color, because of his parents and their colors that they had, his hair starts to turn teal, and it usually starts out with, let me see here. So it'll start off, okay, this is like the worst art that I think I've ever done in my life. It'll start off brownish, and then it'll kind of fade to like a blue color. And then it starts fading from blue to teal, and it gets lighter. And then by the end, it's like this very kind of washed out seafoam teal greeny color. And again, that's because of his parents and like the colors that they had. His mom is much more like red and blue, like that's more of her color palette. And his dad was very much like olive green color. So that's just the way that their hair behaves, and because it's exposed to light. So as he ages, he might get like some normal like gray and stuff, but the same thing's gonna happen where it'll probably be like gray up at his temples. I think in Immolation Volume 1, Benjamin's like, you're going gray, you old man. So he'll start going gray, but if the gray gets longer, then it's gonna have the same fading effect from the sunlight that the rest of his hair does. So I don't know, I guess it would like mostly turn white. It might turn kind of like a very light seafoam color. I don't know. So that's that's the short version of some of the quote unquote science, for lack of a better word. Babble's on a 3-stream streak. Thank you, Babble. Yes, that's why his hair is like that. And Cyril and Mara originate from an island region that's like way down south, yes. So they are characterized by responding a lot to the sun, because they're usually out in the sun a lot. So yeah, Mara is the same way, where her hair with exposure to light would fade. She doesn't get a whole lot of sunlight because the bitch don't get out much. But yeah, and that's why Cyril's hair gets lighter and more kind of greenish seafoamy color the longer it gets, because the hair gets thinner the longer that it gets, and there's more light that can pass through it, so it starts getting bleached more by the sun. So that's why his hair kind of has that little gradient to it. And that's just one of the quirks of his ethnicity, that's just kind of how their colors act and how their bodies and their hair responds to sunlight. They're just very sensitive to like being bleached by light over time. Different ethnicities have different stuff about them. And that's what his ethnicity does. And none of that is important. So we don't touch on any of that in Immolation, because it doesn't matter. But that's the basics of how like his specific ethnicity interacts with their environment, and each ethnicity is different. Tish is a different ethnicity, and they have black sclera for their eyes. And they also have black tongues. And their ethnicity will react differently to being injured over time. So that's like one of their quirks about their ethnicity. And every ethnicity will usually have something like that, where they just, because of where they come from and because magic. I'm just oversimplifying it and just gonna call it magic. But in their world, it's not magic in the sense of like, ooh, magic, nobody knows how it works. Like it's a science that they understand, that people are impacted by where they have lived. That's why Domingo is able to kind of gesture at like Cyril's hair and be like, "Well, you're obviously not from round these parts, because nobody else has that weird hair thing that you guys have." He doesn't say it to Cyril's face, but he would if he could. But yeah, that's why Cyril sticks out like a sore thumb in terms of not being from Windermere or even remotely near Windermere. Bro is an immigrant. That's some crazy genes. Yeah, they have some crazy genetic predispositions to stuff. For how many decades is a vampire able to live? It depends on how much blood soup they eat. But yeah, it just depends. Technically, vampires can live forever, but it requires a lot of upkeep, so most don't. You'll get more vampire information in Volume 2. Volume 2 is gonna spend a lot more time kind of diving into how they're operating, because it was just too much information to cram into Volume 1. So look forward to that. Tish, could you pronounce the name again, please? Yeah, Tish. It's Tish, not Taish. Tish is Ambrose, Ambrose's apprentice at the apothecary shop. Also, because I actually found out relatively recently, well, rather, it was announced relatively recently. Um, I can finally go in and make edits to a published book with one of my publishers. I was able to do this with Amazon before, but I can make or edits. Oh my goodness, I can speak English. I can make edits to the manuscript that's already been published. for my other distributor other than Amazon, because I didn't want to have two versions of the book going around, just because that would be annoying. So I want them to both be consistent. But I had to pay $60 every time I wanted to make any kind of adjustment whatsoever, even if it was correcting one single typo. I would have to pay $60 to make that adjustment. So I wasn't doing it. I'm like, I'm not going to pay $60 to fix one typo. But they've since discontinued that. I can now make edits to it for free, so that's good. So with that update, now I only have to pay for Adobe to to actually make the files. Yay! So it's a little bit cheaper now for me to do that. So what I plan on doing, and I don't know if this will be a second edition of Immolation Volume 1, or if it'll just be an update. I'm gonna have to kind of see what the definitions of that are going to be. It might turn into a second edition, I don't know. But basically, I'm going to add a dramatis personae to the front of the book, which means there's going to be a list of all the characters in the book, so you have like a reference of who is who. And I can include pronunciation guides for different characters. So if that would be helpful, let me know, because I plan to add the dramatis personae list. And if pronunciation guides will be helpful, I can add those to that list. I can't afford to put a map in. Sorry, I would love to do both the dramatis personae and a map. I can't afford the map right now, but I can do the dramatis personae, so I will be doing that. If Cyril and Bronte were normal people, would they have ended up married, or would Cyril still be a walking red flag? I think Cyril would still just be a walking red flag. I don't know. I mean, if they were normal people, meaning Bronte was not a vampire or a Dhampir, and Cyril was not a priest. I honestly don't think they would like each other very much. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. They would like each other, but like Bronte. If Bronte lived a normal life, she wouldn't be interested in a man twice her age. If Bronte had a chance to live a normal life, she wouldn't be interested in a guy that's twice her age. She would have more options. and she wouldn't have the sort of connection to him that she does. I think he could probably still seduce her if he tried, and he would try, because he's still a walking red flag. And he probably could woo her if he tried. But yeah. I often call Cyril with his Hispanic name counterpart. Is it Cirilo? Is that how am I pronouncing it right? I'm still trying to learn my pronunciations for Spanish. But that's nice. I like that. Congratulations, that's huge. Yeah, it's a huge help. To not have to pay $60. So now I only have to pay the $30 for Adobe to create the to create the file in the first place. I'm trying to get away from Adobe, but so far I haven't found anything else that works well for me, so we'll see. Cyril will always be the reddest flag, and we love it for him. Have you found typos in Immolation? Yes, there are a couple of typos that slipped past my editor and I. I don't know if I have any of them kind of off the top of my head. I want to say that there's between 5 and 10 typos. And they aren't like misspelled words, so it's not that like a word has like the wrong letter in the middle of it or something like that. It's that there are specific words that should be either plural or singular, and those have slipped through. I want to say that there's one where I'm trying to remember what it was, but I want to say that there's one where it's like it's in a sentence that has like Levi in it, and he says something or something like that, and the word said was accidentally written as says. So instead of SAID, it was written as SAYS. So stuff like that. Stuff like that has slipped through, and I just need to go through and correct those. But there aren't like that I've found so far. There aren't like completely misspelled words. It's just the wrong word ended up in there. I think if he was her professor, she'd still be extremely drawn to him. Probably, I could see that. If she was well, in volume 2, we actually kind of get a little bit of that, but in like a completely separate world where she's a student and he's teaching some sort of class that she's very passionate about, yeah, I could definitely see her falling for him in that kind of dynamic, because again, it's the part of the reason that Bronte is drawn to him the way that she is because of the power dynamic between the two of them. So anything where that is that sort of kind of mentorship sort of dynamic, I could see her falling for him. I think if she was in any other situation though, she would at least be self-aware enough to know, that's probably not healthy, and then she'd do it anyways, probably. But she would at least know. Versus in Immolation, it's the only life that she's ever really known, so she just doesn't have that additional layer of self-awareness. I think she has a little bit of it. She's definitely going to catch some flack for it in the future, but it's all she's known, so she doesn't really have all that extra context helping her out. Bless her soul. Hashtag save Bronte. Any moment would be crazy for him. If he really sets his sight on her, he can be charming. He has his methods. He could be charming. And then I would come up behind him and I'd spray him with a water bottle so he looks like a wet dog. Unhealthy doesn't mean not pleasant. You're right. Usually the more unhealthy something is, the more fun it is. Wattpad is profitable for a reason. Oh, you're so right. People have told me that I should be writing on Wattpad. Wattpad? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I actually have a side project that I'm not sure what's gonna happen with it, because it might be a little bit too spicy to go on Amazon, so I have to kind of figure out what I'm going to do about that. And in theory, that means it could end up being published elsewhere, But I haven't gotten that far. I'm still trying to think about how I'm gonna handle it, but we'll see what happens. Not sure if her mouth is going to be open or not yet, so I don't know. We'll see. She likes to bare her teeth a lot. And the secret side project, the high quality of it. Yeah, that poor side project. Still not sure what I'm gonna do about it, but we'll figure it out. I still need to get a couple more beta readers on it to just get some more opinions in terms of if it can go on Amazon or not. I mean, the whole point of that project was putting it on Amazon as kind of a science experiment because I wanted to test out the Kindle Unlimited program because Immolation is not on the Kindle Unlimited program, and I'm considering whether or not I will put Volume 2 on that program. It's just that doing so limits where I can publish the ebook. And because I have readers who are not in the US or who are not in a country where Amazon distributes, I don't know if I necessarily want to lock those people out of being able to get an ebook, because ebooks are the most affordable version of the book. And I want people who don't have access to Amazon to be able to get that. So, I don't know. I have to think on that as well. There's a gnarly little exclusivity clause in that contract that I don't know if I want to commit to. The secret project, it's fine, but not for Immolation. Or Bronte, I would think he's kind of toxic, so I should stay away from him, but he's kind of hot, so sorry, I'll take the risk. Nada, he's not toxic, he's tsundere. Let's see. I just... Because eventually he will be holding onto her reins, but I'm just going to erase them for now. I really should have a reference for this, but I'm too lazy to look up one right now. I will correct my anatomy some other time. When I can be bothered. Which is not right now. I know I would take that risk. Emotionally repressed. Yeah, but don't worry, I'm sure she can fix it. Other opinions definitely wouldn't hurt, hopefully. They might even be able to tell you what you could cut. Don't let them cut anything. Aware I'm too indecisive for such things. Have you tried asking your following? I feel like people who know you might be more willing to. So it's not so much that I am having trouble finding people who are willing to beta read for me, because I can find lots of people that are willing to beta read for me. They just aren't a good fit. I'm looking for people who read that genre a lot and can kind of offer me objective points of feedback rather than just kind of saying, oh, well, I prefer that this happens in the books that I read, and that's not what I'm looking for. I need objective, based off of other books I've read, this is kind of how I feel yours stacks up, that kind of feedback. And that's what I'm having trouble finding. But I don't necessarily have a shortage of people who are offering. It's just that they aren't the right fit. They're not offering me good feedback. So I don't know. We'll see. I just have to keep trying, I guess. Keep trying to find people, but man, it gets so exhausting dealing with people. I manage people at my day job. I don't want to have to do it for my hobby too. Babel, don't say that you wish you could help, because I've literally offered to let you beta read and you said no. No, you didn't. You told me it wasn't free. I offered. I said that you can beta read it if you want to, and then you said no. I still don't think I'm doing a good job. I'm only offering you options, not answering your questions. No, your feedback is very, very helpful. A better. Let me try that again. Put my teeth back in and try again. A beta reader isn't supposed to solve problems. You're not responsible for trying to fix everything. I just need a different pair of eyes to look at it, because you can see things that I can't. And then based off of that, I try to solve problems. Check your DMs. I know that we had that conversation previously. I'm talking about what I offered after that. Because I did offer after that. Hold on. See, now hold on. Now I need to clear my name. Now I have to find where I said that. Hold on. have no memory of that place. I'm determined. I'm gonna find it. I'm also looking because I'm doubting myself. I offered after. This was well after I had originally said that it just wasn't a genre that you were going to want to read. This was after I had found out that Amazon, I potentially couldn't publish it on Amazon. And then I offered it to you again and you said no. That's what I'm trying to find. I know this happened. I found it. I found it. I'm vindicated. Hold on. I found it. And you, all caps, responded to me, no. So I took it as no, you don't want to read it. I'm vindicated, just so everyone knows. I was right and Babel was wrong. You said because I wanted to buy it, not just read it. You may not even be able to buy it. I don't know if I'll be able to sell it. Because Angelique is too much of a horn dog. If it's not going to be published anyways, possibly, you don't need to feel bad. Babel said she didn't want to take it because she would feel bad. It's there if you want it. The offer is still open. I have the next few chapters ready, so Vante, you're going to be getting those soon. Because I told you, I don't write in chronological order. So that one sequence that was giving me a lot of trouble and really held me up now that that's over, there's a bunch of material that's already written after that. Oh, and by the way, Vante, you guessed which part I had to rewrite a bunch of times. You guessed wrong. I'll leave you a comment in the document and tell you which part I actually struggled and had to rewrite a bunch of times. I want the book now. Well, it's not even done yet, but and this is completely different from Immolation. If you like Immolation, you're probably not gonna like. I don't know. Maybe you would. I don't know. But it's a different beast. It's a different thing. I told you I couldn't tell which scene it was. What else do you want from me? I'm trying to think which number chapters did I give you? I think I gave you 30 through 35, I think. Something like that. But anyways, the first chapter of the sequence that I sent you, of the section I sent you. That first chapter I rewrote. There's actually at least 2 different documents that have completely different scenes of that written, and I didn't like either of them. So that's the one that I had to rewrite. I had to change it completely. Originally that did not play out even remotely similar. Okay, I take it back. I just feel bad taking it without giving something back. Well, if you want to give me something back, you can just give me your honest to God thoughts. That's it. If you read something and you're like, wow, this is the dumbest thing I've ever written. Whoops, this is the dumbest thing I've ever read, and you should stop writing. If you want to tell me that, you can. just give me your thoughts, and that would be very helpful. But also, if you say that, then I won't let you read anything of mine ever again. Why not? The Secret Project is a different genre. It's a dark romance. I guess is that I don't know. Babel and Vante, do you think that's accurate based off of what you know? You're the 2 people who've obviously Vante's read more of it, but Babel knows of it because I've spoken about it. I would call it a dark romance rather than a dark fantasy. So it has a different vibe, shall we say, which just may not be to your tastes depending on what you like to read. I'm the sort of person who, if I pick up a fantasy book and the book has told me it's a fantasy book and then it turns out to be a romance, I'll get really annoyed. Even if I like the characters, even if I like the story, even if I think the romance is cool or fun, I'm like, you told me this book was something that it isn't, and now I'm mad. So I like to know what I'm getting myself into when I read something. That's why I'm a little bit of a romantasy hater, just because every time I pick up a fantasy book and then it turns out to be a romance, I'm like, ah. I want to say dark romance. What? Sir, have a deal. I actually really enjoy your action scenes. I wouldn't change or skip anything. Well, that's good to know, because the action scene in the first chapter of the ones you just read, because I'm sending them for context for everybody else. I send the beta read chapters in 5 chapter sections. So the first chapter of the most recent 5 that Vante read is an action sequence, and I had that originally play out completely differently, and I didn't like it, so I had to rewrite it, and I had to rewrite it like 3 or 4 times total, and just because, and I don't normally get hung up on scenes like that. I don't think I ever got that hung up on something, on any of the scenes for Immolation. Immolation's a different beast, and I have a much stricter, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, I have a very, very strict story that I am keeping to in Immolation, versus, you know, this little just fun side project that I'm doing just for the fun of it. It's a little bit more fluid, so that means it can actually be a little bit harder to work with. But yeah, that action sequence had like a completely different version that I didn't like, so it had to be rewritten. There's too much romance for it not to be the genre. That's what I think. But so when I think of a dark romance or any romance novel, romance as a genre follows very strict genre conventions for pacing and plot development and certain things. And I don't think I've really rigidly held to that format? Question mark. So I'm not sure if I could really, in good faith, call it a dark romance, because I don't think I've done a very good job of sticking to that formula. I could just slap the romantasy label on it and call it a day, but I don't know. I think there's enough focus on the relationship for it to be considered a romance, but I'm sure that there's probably some diehard Puritan romance readers out there who'd be like, no, absolutely not, because there isn't this one specific thing that you're always supposed to do in Act 3 of a romance novel, because that's not in there, it's not a romance. And they'd be right to say it, because I didn't hold to that structure. So I don't know. Depends on how strict you want to be with the definitions, I guess. But I mean, yeah, I'd probably call it a dark romance myself, or like a dark romantasy, perhaps, because there is a plot outside of the romance itself. It's not solely based off of the romance. I don't know. It's a book. If you like it, you can read it. I'm too chill about all that. I don't really care to get in the weeds of all that stuff. I'll leave it to the folks who do care about it. Curious what that scene could have been. It wasn't good. I'll just tell you that. It was boring. The version that I wrote originally, I personally felt was too boring. So that's why I cut it out and I did the one that you got to read. I want to try to read it. Well, it's very spicy. So, well, I don't know. Not very. Probably not. I don't know. I don't actually have a good metric to judge to judge how spicy it is compared to the other market offerings, shall we say. No, that's how enemies to lovers works. That's the whole point. Well, I don't know. See, people will say, "Oh, I love enemies to lovers," and then I found two beta readers who I specifically told it's a dark romance and it's enemies to lovers. So they hate each other at the start of the book. Like, they hate one another. This isn't like school rivalry type enemies to lovers. These people hate each other. They hate their guts. And both of these people, I told them it's a dark romance, it's enemies to lovers, and they were like, yay, those are my two favorite things. And I said, okay, so you can read it. And then, like, the first comment was, the characters, like, don't like each other. I'm like, yeah, because it's an enemies to lovers story, they start off the story hating each other. I'm like, the label was on the tin, and I read the label to you, and you're still mad that by chapter 2 they aren't making hard eyes at each other. By chapter 2, they're just discovering the depths of their hatred for one another. I I don't know what to tell you. So even if you tell people that it's an enemies to lovers story and that it's a dark romance, they're still somehow shocked by the fact that it's what it says on the tin. I don't know. Go figure. I will also be very curious to see Babel's comments. Now I'm scared. Just I'll be as honest as I can be. Basically, like, I don't want you to overthink it or be overwhelmed by it. So just give me like your first impressions as you read through. Because I mean, some of the comments that I got from other beta readers were that they hate Cyril and he's really unpleasant and they don't like him and they don't see how he's ever gonna be a love interest, which to me, I'm like, well, yeah, because it's enemies to lovers, so they hate each other right now. So obviously, he's not he's not gonna be charming or friendly right now. So, uh, but in general, just your impressions as you read through would be helpful. Because if he's that unpleasant to read, then I should be addressing that. But it's hard to know if they just have strange expectations about what enemies to lovers means, or if he's genuinely not fun to read. Because I don't know. I don't know. Made the book now. Hold your horses. I haven't even sent it to Babel yet. She's just agreed. She hasn't actually had it sent to her. I have to go into the documents and create all the saves and everything for her to actually be able to go in and read. Actually, some readers complain that enemies don't have high stakes and feel too childish, even. Some people want them to hate their guts. Here, well, they do appreciate the guts. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say if I haven't found the right beta readers, or if something about my writing style just isn't fun to read. I don't know, because this is a different genre, so it's hard to say. But hopefully, if I can just get some more eyes on it, I will get some more feedback and I can get a better idea. And I will probably be tweaking it anyways, because theoretically, if I do want to ever put it on Amazon, which I still don't know if I'm going to be taking that risk or not, I will probably want to tweak some of the peppercorns. The other thing with it that's a bit tricky is that Angelique is also not a very likable person. Um, so I want to figure out how to try to perhaps balance that a little bit more as well, because I write, my primary writing obviously is immolation, but that style of writing and those style of characters is a dark fantasy slash bordering on grimdark in terms of the characters. They're not supposed to be these like chivalrous, noble characters that you want to root for or anything like that. They're meant to be messy and morally gray and not necessarily good, inherently good people, but maybe people that are trying to do the right thing, maybe. And that's what Angelique falls into. So she's not the perfect romance protagonist, especially if you have romance readers who want to be able to project onto her. They're probably not necessarily going to be able to do that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's my problem. I'm kind of realizing, I'm like, oh, maybe people just can't project onto Angelique enough. I don't know. That's not my style of writing either. I have never been someone who, as a reader, wants to project myself onto characters I'm reading. I like to feel like I am kind of like watching a film. I like to feel that I'm there and I get to watch the story unfold, with the added benefit of the medium being I can know more of a character's internal thoughts. And I really enjoy that. but I know that that's not necessarily how a lot of people read. A lot of people like to project onto characters and picture themselves in the story. I don't necessarily think there's a right or a wrong, but I do know that that's not how I write or read. So I don't know, if people go in with those expectations, that might also be causing friction. I don't know. Angelique is growing on me. She feels real. That's what I go for, and I realize that's probably not a good idea with a romance novel, because romance novels are not meant to be real. They're not. That's antithetical to the concept of the genre. Romance as a genre is meant to be unrealistic wish fulfillment stuff. So, I don't know. I might try to tweak her a little bit. The whole idea of Angelique is that she's hiding behind this really abrasive personality. But people might not be willing to read long enough for her to kind of come out from behind that, so I don't know. That's probably more of my dark fantasy writing approach bleeding through too, because I want people to go on a journey with the characters, and that's not really what the romance genre is for, I don't think. So I don't know. I have to fiddle with her, try to make her more appealing. The mental filmography of reading. That's how I like to read, but I'm in the minority, and I'm realizing this. That's okay, but man, I don't mind being in the minority of writers and readers. What I do mind is when every single writing group I try to join and participate in treats me like I'm an idiot because there is clearly only objectively one correct way to write, and it's so that people can project onto characters. That's what I don't like, and I get that a lot in the various groups that I try to participate in. I don't think. That's nice. So you think she's the issue, but she's also a misunderstood character. I might be too empathetic. I'm so easy to manipulate into caring. I mean, people people respond different. Well, I say people. My sample size is small, but you know, the couple of beta readers that I have tried before responded differently to her. Um, like one kind of had the reaction of "Yay, we love a bad bitch, love that for her." Like that was kind of their approach. And then the other one was like, she's super unlikable and I hate her. So I don't really know. I mean, she's the whole kind of premise is that you're supposed to get the impression early on that she's compensating. She's frustrated, she's nervous, she's insecure, etc., and she's upset and compensating for all of that by being angry and abrasive and controlling, etc., because that's what she knows. And it's supposed to be unlikable behavior. You're supposed to be annoyed with her and you're supposed to be frustrated that she's acting that way. Because then she gets her comeuppance pretty early on, and I wanted that comeuppance to feel earned. But she's also not supposed to flick like a switch and suddenly start behaving completely differently. Because that's not realistic, and that's not how I write my characters. So I don't know. I have to just kind of think on how I'm presenting her, I guess. Let's see. Oh man, it's already 1 o'clock. Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap up the work that I'm doing on Age's Tale, and then I'm gonna call it because I'm hungry and I need to eat some lunch. Calling out from you is she's sassy as hell. I mean, yes, correct. Some of the dark romances I've read before actually portray female leads as very broken and illogical creatures. Uh, yeah, I would say that lines up with what I know of female leads in books. I know that. I mean, I'm not going to say that Angelique thinks through all of her decisions perfectly. She's literally got an advisor who's supposed to do that for her. But I do want her decisions to at least make sense, even if her behavior is emotional. I want it to makes, I don't know, I'm putting like I'm trying way too hard. And what I haven't drawn in yet, but what Adra does have, is floofy feet. So, starting from about here, she's got fluffy feet. And I'll have to kind of think about how I add motion to that. Because like this foot should probably be kind of like that, because this foot is coming up. This one, potentially we can have that direction. This one pretty obviously would be all coming this way. And to kind of add a little bit more motion to this foot, we could kind of have it be fluffing up a little bit, as if she just put that foot down. And then we could probably do like some little impact lines here for her, like setting that foot down, something like that. I think that is going to have to do it for today. That's as far as we're getting on this particular sketch. I was naively thinking I'd get far enough to do her barding, but psh, that didn't happen. But yes, it was fun to draw her. I don't know if I'll work on this one or maybe that other kind of desktop wallpaper one that I mentioned for next stream. We'll just have to see. We'll have to see where it goes. But yes, thank you guys very much for hanging out. I hope you guys had fun. It was fun to chat as always. I stream every other Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hope you guys can make it. Thank you for being here and hanging out. It's always a pleasure. And I'll see you guys next time.